the Aaron Rodgers topic was inevitable. The Aaron Rodgers sticking it to the Jets by going to the Giants was inevitable. And now here we are, according to Diana Rossini and Schefter and all these others that are reporting that Aaron is reaching out, or his agent is, to a lot of teams trying to gauge interest, which tells you he wants to play.
Definitely. And Evan had predicted retirement. So if you're just starting your car, maybe you're out going for a walk, popping us on free on the Odyssey app, a little timeline of events on what has happened over the last hour. Matt Stafford and the Rams have agreed to a reworked, restructured contract. He is not, forget being a Giant, he's not going to be a Raider either. He is staying put with the Los Angeles Rams, which for the Rams, look, they were the closest to beating the Eagles in the NFC out of any of those teams. That makes a lot of sense for them. Meaning the Giants now need to shift their attention. Okay? And as it stands right now, the Giants are picking third overall. No guarantee of Shedeur Sanders and Cam Ward. More on that later. But in the aftermath and the immediacy, the reports coming out are that the Giants and Aaron Rodgers, the ex-Jet quarterback, have been in conversation, according to Schefter, multiple phone calls back and forth between the Giants and Rodgers reps, and apparently a lot of buzz in that in Indy. So, Tiki, okay, before we just break this off, just a reminder before they go crazy on the phones, okay, before we light up the phones at 888-808-1019. I'm generally pumped up to talk about this. Remember, before you lose your
more years
bleeping minds, we know this fact, undeniable fact.
Go ahead.
The New York Giants are adding a veteran quarterback.
100%. They told us that already.
They told us that already. We also know fact number 2. The only quarterback they basically have on the roster is Tommy DeVito.
And he doesn't have the offer yet.
Right.
But Joe Shane essentially told us that he was going to be qualified offer, or whatever the heck they call it in the NFL, because he's a restricted rights, exclusive rights free agent.
And when we started the week on Tuesday, Joe Shane met the media at the Combine and did again mention the idea of both a rookie being on this team and a veteran being on this team. So I lined that all up to say, before you call, and call now at 888-808-1019 and scream and yell yeses or nos on Rodgers, they are adding a veteran. So the question needs to be asked, are you excited if it's Aaron Rodgers? Are you excited?
I mean, how can you not be excited if it's Aaron Rodgers? Because at the end of last season, really from the middle to the end of last season with the Jets, you started to see him playing better, right? I know he still had those bad mechanic throws where he's just taking one step and sidearm him 35 yards downfield on the back shoulder, and those frustrate you as a Jet fan or as just a football fan. You're like, dude, that's not efficient. And when it's incomplete, it drives you insane.
Right.
But after a while, he started completing those, and it started to look like Aaron Rodgers from his Green Bay Packer days. And so another year removed from that Achilles injury, healthier, even though he's older, it is exciting to think about it. Now, the question then becomes, how much does he have left, and will this work with what the Giants have in-house right now? And I'm talking about the talent level, meaning Malik Neighbors and Wan'Dale Robinson, Theo Johnson, et cetera, Tyrone Tracy, but also the coaches, right?
Yeah.
Like, what's the reaction or the interaction between a very strong-minded Brian Dable, head coach, former coach of the year, and the ego Hall of Fame quarterback Aaron Rodgers? Like, it feels like a butting of the heads potentially, but on the other side of that same coin, I would say Dabes is like the ultimate competitor. Right? He's been in it, he's seen it in so many. He's been coaching forever. College, NFL, won a national championship down in Alabama with the New England Patriots as well, Super Bowl, etc. Like, he's been around a lot, and he knows what it takes to win, but he also knows the kind of dudes that you need to win. And I would bet that the competitiveness of Dabes with the, whatever you want to call whatever it is Aaron Rodgers has, might actually be very cohesive.
Oh, baby.
If it's not combative, I think it would be cohesive.
This is what's so wild. So I know what anybody listening right now is going to say. Sean, you walking hypocrite. You made fun of the Jets for 2 years for getting Aaron Rodgers old and washed. And my answer to that would be, you are correct. However, as I've pointed out, even if Evan hasn't wanted to hear it, it was the idea of when the Jets got Aaron Rodgers, it went from we are in this long playoff drought to Well, of course we could compete with the Chiefs. We're going to go in the AFC. We're going to go. And
There's three teams that can win the Super Bowl, and now we're one of them.
Right, when Aaron Rodgers was aging and all of that. And by the way, he's 2 years older and obviously now going to be a second year removed from the Achilles. This is a different scenario and a different time. I don't think there's a Giant fan right now, unless you're out there and you guys could call us again, 888-808-1019, that looks at adding Aaron Rodgers and goes, yes, the Giants are going to go win 12 games. We're going to compete with the Eagles. It's not about that. This team needs to stabilize the organization. They are about to play. How many of you have pointed out how difficult the schedule is going to be?
Right.
The Aaron Rodgers being able to mentally have that chess match, which he still had, I think is going to be really important in a lot of these games. And look, in the end, we know they're signing a veteran, right? So if they have to sign a guy, I would rather Aaron Rodgers than Russell Wilson, Jameis Winston.
Yeah.
I mean, trading for Derek Carr, even Kirk Cousins, it doesn't mean it's a great situation.
No.
And the other thing, man,
they're not going to trade for one of those guys. So
right.
Eliminate them.
Eliminate
right now.
that.
That's not happening.
And the other thing signing Aaron Rodgers does is it allows you, if you're Joe Shane, to breathe for a second, little second, and go, do I really want to trade a mortgage of picks to go up to 1 or 2 to make sure I get Sanders Award? Or does signing Aaron Rodgers buy me a little time to go, all right, maybe we've done enough scouting and I still want Sanders Award, but they fall to me at 3 and I've given up nothing. I have a quarterback and this quarterback doesn't need to be rushed to play right away, and we'll see how the season plays out.
Yep.
Or, okay, those 2 guys go 1 and 2. All right, now we're taking Travis Hunter. Now we're taking Abdul Carter. We're going to run, and next year we will reevaluate the quarterback position.
Or you have a very early second-round pick, and you have a couple of extra late-round picks. I forget. I looked at it the other day.
They get an extra 4th in the comp pick formula.
And then they have another extra 7th as well, I believe.
That sounds right.
I can't remember what it is now, but whatever it is, you take your latter picks and move from that number 2 pick in the second round and hop back into the first round and take Jackson Dart if you have to. Right?
Yep.
There are ways to look at this in a best interest for the Giants, short and long term, when you consider the Aaron Rodgers proposition. Now, I know a lot of people are going to say, well, we don't want Aaron. We don't want the circus. Look, that's what the Giants have to investigate. That's what they have to figure out. I don't think anybody over there has worked with, maybe Dave knows them because Dave knows everybody.
Right.
Maybe Dave knows Aaron Rodgers a little bit, but the idea of the distraction that he brings is what a lot of people are going to push back on.
Right.
But in some ways, and I'm biased here because I know Dave's and I've had some conversations with him, but I feel like he mitigates it better than what the Jets did.
Oh, for sure. He's more of a head coach that I think level-headedness, or at least like he just won't be walked all over.
Yeah.
And that's not, I feel like that's a slight on Robert Saleh. It's not meant to be. But Robert Saleh told us, I'll never forget this quote, the best teams coach themselves. Brian Dable believes in the actual coaching part of this. And you know what? Everybody's going to use the word desperation, and I can't fight that, but I'll raise you desperation with this word. Motivation.
Well,
and Brian,
you have to do something, Sean.
Yes.
You can't not do anything and just say, hey, we get who we get. We take the best available. Like the Giants can't do that. They have to investigate all options right now. And I'm talking about the guys at the top, Shedeur Sanders and Cam Ward, who they may or may not like. I don't know the answer. Versus the guys you can get later, the Jackson Darts, Jalen Milrose. So the rookies you investigate, and then you're also, they're bringing in a free agent, so you're weighing all of this against the free agent. So there's Aaron Rodgers. There's also Russell Wilson. There's also Jimmy Garoppolo. There's Jacoby Brissett. Right? There's tons of other options in free agency. I don't think any of them give you the one buzz, but also the ability to win right now, like a healthy Aaron Rodgers.
Yeah.
I want to feel what pure love feels like.
Mentally, it goes into it. And we'll see. And also the other thing, we see this contract being reworked. Financially, Rodgers is not going to cost you as much as Matt Stafford was going to cost you, and you're not giving up draft capital. That right? What were the anti-Stafford arguments?
Right.
You're really going to pay a guy $55 million? You're really going to trade for him? Well, you're not doing either of those things and getting Aaron Rodgers. So I know it sounds crazy, and I know that the Jet fan was mocked for this for the last 2 years, but I do think this is an entirely different circumstance, scenario, and expectation. And by the way, speaking of the Jets, you think Aaron Rodgers isn't motivated? You think he didn't feel a little bit of, wait, you're the New York Jets and you don't want me?
Yeah.
You might really get a highly motivated, in this own town, Aaron Rodgers to go, look why you should have kept me.
And so
the night is darkest before the dawn.
And by the way, what you're saying is why this becomes a lot more financially easier for the Giants because he's going to get cut. Right, first time in his career, he said he's getting cut. Now, I don't know if they've determined yet whether it's immediate cut or start of league year or the June 1st cut. And if it's June 1st cut, I think it's really just punitive to the Jets because they don't clear that money until after June 1.
Right, the Giants can agree to their framework.
Exactly, the Giants it shouldn't affect them, and I'm sure the deal will be very creative as it has to be, incentive laden. But it's an interesting now option, especially with Matt Stafford off the table. And look, the reporting on this has been, very, I think, quiet. The Matt Stafford stuff, but the Giants were in on it probably deeply. Clearly. The Raiders were in on it probably deeply, and those are the two most disappointed teams that he decided to go back to the Rams. But you can't feel sorry for yourself. No. You can't sit there and say, oh, we got used and let's cry. No. You got to pivot.
Got to pivot.
And so the easiest one or the one that's getting talked about most is Aaron Rodgers because it feels like Aaron Rodgers is very motivated to be a player next year in the NFL.
This has me all sorts of fired up. So before we get to your calls at 888-808-1019, I have to go to the desk of both former Jet season ticket holder Connor Green and, more importantly, positive Tommy right now as a Giants fan. Tommy, before overthinking it, Aaron Rodgers is a Giant quarterback. Where do you stand?
I'm glad you used the word overthinking because I am overthinking. Let me just start. Let me start with this. The Giants are desperate to win. I think the ownership, front office, head coach are desperate to win. You bring Dable and Shane back, so Aaron Rodgers or Stafford makes all the sense in the world based on where they're at. You mentioned the word circus. I would argue you win one home game, you have planes flying outside MetLife Stadium. You kind of already are a circus. I think they're coming off the worst year in franchise history. They basically were a mockery, starting with Hard Knocks and with Saquon. So I think you don't want to use the word desperate. I'm going to use it. They are absolutely desperate to win. And I think Aaron Rodgers is 100% motivated to stick it to Woody Johnson, who I believe is the reason why Rodgers is not with the Jets. He is motivated to stick it to the Jets. I'm excited. There is some rat poison here.
Of course there is.
And Aaron Rodgers and friends scares me because I'm worried about the growth of Malik Neighbors if we bring in Adams, etc.
Put a pin in that. We're going to get to that in a little bit.
Put a pin in it. Aaron Rodgers and either Hunter or Carter at 3, the Giants are now in the conversation again. They are in the conversation to make the playoffs. They are in the conversation to make a run. And as a Giant fan that's had to watch horrible football now for basically a decade, I am excited.
Connor Green.
I'm not sure if I will be able to handle this mentally because what's going to wind up happening here is
come to the dark side, Connor. Or the bright side, I should say.
The best way for this Aaron Rodgers saga to end is he leaves the Jets, goes to the Giants, wins the Super Bowl, while the Jets have Kirk Cousins. They win 3 games, and it's another 10 years of missing the playoffs. That is what's going to happen. That's the perfect end to this saga. And honestly, I just don't know if mentally I can handle it.
Connor's my favorite.
This is the best.
The woe is me Jet fan.
It's a perfect character that we now have introduced to the show.
I'll say this. If Aaron Rodgers goes to the Giants, when the script writers handed me this script, even I didn't believe it.
No.
Like, who saw this coming?
We joked about this.
We joked about it
3 weeks ago.
We joked about it because we said, why would Rodgers come in?
Forget 3 weeks ago. When Aaron Rodgers came out of the darkness to, and I'm using air quotes, lead the Jets to the Super Bowl, he gets hurt the first year, wins 5 games last year, and now he's the Giants quarterback.
I hated the guy. He was a jerk to me in Arizona. I couldn't believe it the time I met him. Now I'm like, yeah, bring him in. What a fraud I am.
This is reality TV at its best.
Yeah. So good. So Aaron Rodgers, look, it's not done, but clearly the Giants were very aggressive on Stafford, and this is being talked about. I love today. I love today. 888
Devontae Adams, Malik Neighbors. He might throw 70 touchdowns next year.
Oh, man. Give me Randall Cobb, Mason Crosby. Put on Tiki's 21. Come kick again. Let's go. Maybe Clay Matthews will play next to Micah McFadden. We're coming to you live from the Town Fair Tire Studios.